Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining today. My name is Gina Fulton and I am the Marketing Coordinator at Estimating EDGE. Today, James Lee, our Business Analyst, will be covering the introduction to Vector, followed by Bob Ostrander, our Vector Sales Manager, who will be answering any questions you may have at the end. Before we get started, we have a couple of housekeeping items. All lines have been muted, but we will answer questions after the webinar. To ask questions, enter them in the questions window. We will answer them at the end. I will send you an email that has a recorded link. The recording will also be available to watch on demand on our website. When you leave the webinar today, a pop-up window will open with a 3-question survey. One of the questions is what topics you'd like to see in upcoming webinars. We'd love your feedback. Thank you for joining. James, let's get started.
Thank you very much, Gina. So like Gina said, for those of you who haven't met me, my name is James Lee. I'm a business analyst here at the EDGE. I've been working here for over 3 years, and we are super excited to show you one of our brand new products today called Vector. And I just want to start by thanking all of you for your time. And so before we actually see how Vector works, let's talk a little bit about what it is. All right, so Vector, and specifically the professional service level of Vector, is a new product that we're here to show you today, and it's new groundbreaking technology. And before I talk about some bullet points around the software, I want to remind you that we are still an over 30-year-old company selling you software as a service, and our products are still centered around estimating and project management, and we still have the same team. Okay, built by construction estimating experts and former tradesmen who listen to you and understand what you need and take your feedback and incorporate it into the products. Okay, so we're just taking our same values and pushing it towards a new product. Okay, now let's talk about exactly what Vector is. So one thing that you should know is that this is a web-based application. That allows it to be very, very fast. It also allows us to push new features to the software without you being obligated to download a new version to your computer. Okay, so it's very sustainable. It's also going to work off the cloud the same way as a lot of our other products. And what we're calling this new product is a model-based estimating software. So what that means is we allow you to import 3D models into the web interface, and we extract all of the data from that model, like the shapes, the dimensions, the quantity, all kinds of information. And we're going to use that to help you organize your takeoff, perform it much faster, and then finish out your estimate the same way you're doing now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to help you leverage new technology, understand 3D models and specifically Revit files without having to buy heavy computer machinery or understand how to work 3D models in totality or how to work Revit in totality. It's going to give you just enough to stay knowledgeable with what's going on in the industry and use it to perform your estimates and your takeoff faster and better. Okay, now there's all kinds of different files that contain 3D models. For version 1 of Vector, we are focusing specifically on Revit. All right, if you're familiar with 3D models, you might know about IFC or DWG or DWFX exports from Autodesk or AutoCAD, I'm sorry. Those we will be looking to work with in the future, but as of right now, it's just going to be Revit files, okay? Now, if you're familiar with Revit models, you know that just like the life cycle of a construction project, there's going to be data in there across multiple trades, right? All the way from the concrete foundation to the roof, getting as granular as electrical outlets and furniture and fire extinguishers. So that may seem overwhelming to you. But as you're going to see later on in this demonstration, we give you a really efficient and easy to understand way to filter out the data that's not relevant to you and just focus on your scope of work. Okay, and once we do that, we're going to take the shapes and the quantities that the architect has already built into this model, and we're going to allow you to just automate your takeoff process. So that's what I want you to keep an eye out for, is the process of taking the data from the model and applying it to your edge conditions later on. And we've been told that with this new takeoff process, we can actually speed it up by up to 80%. We've heard that from our actual customers, okay? That's why we're so excited to present this to you. And our goal by speeding up your takeoff is to have you spend more time estimating and less on measuring, right? Right now, you're spending a lot of time importing your 2D PDF plans and tracing over the top of them to get your quantities. We want to automate that process and make it as quick and accurate as possible for you so you can spend more time with your industry knowledge, setting up pricing and responding to changing industry trends and using your knowledge to build out your properties and things like that. All right. So another thing I want to stress is that although this is a new product, it is not meant to replace the EDGE Estimator, our flagship product that all of you are using right now. It seamlessly integrates with it. We're going to take all this data from the 3D model, which is Vector specialty, and then we're going to export it to the EDGE. And you're still going to be able to use your expansive conditions database, all of your items, your material, your labors, all your pricing and formulas, your markups, your built reports. None of that goes away or changes. We're just going to give you a faster way to take off because of the data from the 3D model. Okay, so seamless integration, but you'll still be finishing the estimate process the same way that you do now. Okay, so later on after the demonstration, if you have questions about purchasing or more demonstrations, you can reach out to Bob, whose email is displayed on the screen here, and check out the beautiful website that our marketing team has created, vectortakeoff.com. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get into how Vector actually works. So you should see the administration portal up on my screen now, which because most of you are EDGE users, you should be familiar with. It's where you can do things like handle your users, your licenses, roles, download new versions of the EDGE. But once you purchase Vector, you'll also see a Vector menu option here as well. And we're starting on a screen called the Bid Preparation Manager. Now this will list out all of the bids that your company currently has active. But if we just start from step one, we can hit this Start New Bid Prep button there. And we can call this New Bid, Interiors, Webinar 119. We can go ahead and give it a bid number. We can choose who the estimator is. We can add a description. We can add an address for the project, various different date fields, as well as some initial notes. And once all these required fields have been filled out, we just hit Create New Bid. And that's going to pop it into our list, which is how the rest of these bids got here. Okay, next we're just going to click on the name of it. And now we're inside of this Vector bid. So here's the name of it. We can hit this edit button to change some of the bid information we just saw. There's also a collaborative notes section here where you can communicate with your team. We have an events grid that we'll come back to a little bit later on. So most of this screen is just informational. What I want to do is keep us moving using this left-hand side toolbar and jump into the file manager. All right. So earlier I talked about importing the 3D model into the web interface. All right, so, and we're talking specifically about Revit files here. So that's what we're gonna do right now. That's the next step after creating your bid. We're gonna hit this upload file button. It's gonna go ahead and open up your computer file explorer. You're just gonna select your Revit file wherever it's located. It'll display the name of it. You just wanna verify that's correct. And then you wanna hit this add button here. And this separate window will appear. Now, when extracting the data from the Revit model, to get to that point, there's two steps. First, we need to upload the Revit file to the cloud. So that's what we're doing right now. And that portion of the process will be complete once this status bar reaches 100%. So until that point, we just need you to keep your internet connection connected. We need you to keep both of these browser windows open. All right, and at a maximum, that should take no more than 10 to 20 minutes for extremely large files. I've seen it work in as quick as 1 to 2 minutes. All right, so again, once this reaches 100%, then you can shut off your PC. You can disconnect from internet and go about your life. All right, so not much obligation to you there. All right, and we accept any Revit file that is newer than 2018. All right, so we have a Revit file that's already been uploaded for us. So we're gonna go ahead and X out of here and jump back to our bid preparation manager. And we're gonna go into a bid called Webinar-Interiors. And here's that same overview screen that we just looked at. So we've got our bid information, we've got a note that we can see present here. And in the events tab, just something you can look at is we do get a notification that your Revit file, we call them smart files, have been processed successfully. And you'll also receive an email once it's finished processing as well. All right, so now let's jump into our file manager and take a look at what that screen looks like once our upload is complete. So what you're seeing here is a list of all the sheets that the architect has made available to us inside of this Revit file, okay? So these are so much more than just background images. These are the plans that you're accustomed to working with every day, floor plans, ceiling plans, sections, elevations, and details. But besides just the image of the plan, they're also going to contain actual data from the model. The three-dimensional model is going to be broken up into these different sheets, depending on where certain shapes exist, on what floor, what sections or elevations they're a part of. So at this point, we can edit, we can delete and organize these files, but what we want to do is actually dive inside of them and take a look at the data that exists within them and work with it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and keep moving deeper into this bid by jumping from our file to our filter manager. And so we have talked about how with this model, there's going to be data across so many different trades, all right, from the concrete foundation all the way up to the roof. So how do we get to the point where we're just focusing on our trade-specific data? And remember, today we're just talking about interiors, so we want to focus on our interior walls, acoustical ceilings, and maybe even some doors. So this is the efficient and easy to understand filtering process that I mentioned earlier. So to get started with that, all we need to do is add a new filter. And we're going to call this one walls and doors with today's date. And we're going to hit add filter. And that'll pop it right into our list here. Now, underneath the name of the filter is 3 branches: categories, families, and properties. Now, if you're familiar with Revit models, these terms you've likely heard before. If not, all they are different ways to identify data. Simply put, if you take a piece of data from a 3-dimensional model or a Revit file specifically, every piece of data belongs to a category, belongs to a family, and has its own set of properties. So what we're going to do today is say, hey, I'd like to bring in data from this category, but not that one. Or I'd like to bring in these families, but not those families. It's really as simple as that. All right, so we're not reinventing the wheel here. Again, we want to leverage this new technology, but present it to you and work with it in a way that's easy for you to understand. All right, so we're going to start at the categories level by hitting edit categories. And we're going to expand next to where it says model. And you can see here what we mean when we say the data is so diversified. We can see walls, we see structural foundations, framing and columns, even things like plumbing, lighting and mechanical fixtures. We have things like ceilings, doors, even furniture, okay? So all we need to do with the interiors mindset is flip on our walls, and we're gonna flip on our doors. And the rest of this we can just ignore, okay? It really is as simple as that. You can see how generic these categories are. And I promise we'll come back to our ceilings a little bit later. For now, we're just gonna stick with walls and doors. And we're ready to move on to the next stage, which is our families, all right? So now we can expand our walls category, and we see a description that says basic wall. This is what we call a family name. What we really want to do is expand that and further look at what we call family types. And in this case, these are simply just different wall types that are present in this job. All right. So for example, if you know that as a company, you're going to be building all walls on this job, whether it's exterior, CMU, or interior, you simply just hit this toggle all button and we'll bring in every single one of these walls here. But if you know that you're only going to be building interior walls and no CMU or exterior, you can go ahead and just start toggling off what you don't need. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get rid of all of these exterior and CMU walls that we know we're not gonna be building. And all we do is just toggle them off, just like I'm doing here, and it's really that easy. And then we've got all of our interior walls listed on the bottom here. And that's what we're gonna wanna work with today, all right? And then we just do the same thing for our doors. Now we see some more advanced descriptions, right? We can see that these are single doors and here are the dimensions of those doors. We see some single doors with a side light. We see a barn double sliding door because this is how the architect indicated them to us. So if you know that we're just gonna build all these doors, again, I can just toggle all of them on. And it's really that easy. That's what I've just done here. So at this point, 99% of the time, you're going to be finished with your filtering process. So this is just textual representations of the data in the model, right? Not difficult. Your industry knowledge is going to allow you to understand exactly what these wall types and door types are, and we're really not giving you anything too new, right? It's in a format you should be able to understand. Now, I mentioned that about 99% of the time you'll be finished here, but I do want to show you that you are able to filter at a deeper level if you want to, right? And that's called the properties level. So here, as an example, we can search up a property such as length, and we can view all the possible length dimensions for shapes in this model. And we can say, oh, I'd only like to work with shapes of a certain length. Or a more realistic example is if we search up a property of level, I only want shapes on level 2 of the job, okay? So there may be some properties that are useful to you depending on your scope of work. But again, 90% of the time, and what we're gonna do today is just stop at our family level here, and we're gonna hit save and close, and that'll finalize our filter set on the left. We'll see the different categories and families that we've brought in today, all right? And then on the right-hand side, we see all of the sheets that contain the data that we indicated we'd like to see, all right? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go handle our ceilings. We're just gonna create another filter called ceilings 119, and we're gonna go ahead and hit this add button here. We're gonna go and under our model section, find our ceilings category, the same way we did with our walls and doors, and we're gonna move forward to families. Now you'll see later on in the demonstration why I chose to do ceilings in a separate filter set. This is a pro tip for you. I'm gonna expand my ceilings. We see we have some 2x4 acoustical systems, a gypsum wallboard ceiling, even an exterior soffit and some metal panel rain screens. All right, I'm just gonna bring all of that in. And again, that's how simple it is. Now I hit save and close, boom, I've just created another filter. So we're talking about expansive models here that you can understand and filter through in a minute or less, okay? So at this point, we've successfully narrowed down the data, right? Now what we wanna do is something that you're familiar with, which is building your bid structure. And I'm talking about scenarios, sections, and pages, all right? And so we're gonna use this filter and the sheets that it knows we need to be our basis for the pages that we create, all right? And you're gonna see how much faster we can do this on the web interface. So I'm gonna select my filter set that says walls and doors, and I'm gonna hit a button that says create scenario. And I'm gonna go ahead and give this scenario a name. We're gonna say walls, doors, and ceilings, and we're gonna put today's date. Now I can select groups of plans to bring in. So what I would wanna do is only select floor and ceiling plan. I want to exclude elevation, section, and area plans because I don't want to utilize those for my takeoff. Excluding them here does not delete them from your central file manager for the job. They will still remain there for reference, but we're just trimming down what file types we'd like to use for takeoff, right? The same way that you would do in the Edge, you would only use your takeoff files as pages and then leave the rest in your bid image manager. So now we can hit this create scenario and navigate button, and it's gonna take us to another screen, okay? It's going to take us to our build screen, which is where we can manage our bid structure. Okay, so we see our scenario named walls, doors, and ceilings 119. If we expand that, I see it's given us a default section, which I can easily rename. We'll just call it section 1. And below that, I have 66 sheets that have been added as pages to this section. So look at how quick it was for us to go ahead and create our bid structure. It's the example of the web interface. And now all we need to do is trim down this number of pages, right? Even though we did already exclude elevation, sections, and area plans, as we see here, there's a bunch of enlarged and base plans and demolition and VT plans that we want to get rid of, okay? So all we have to do is enter the search bar here and just start typing up some matches to the description. Okay, we're gonna type up enlarged. And all we do is just hit shift on the first plan and grab a list here and then hit this delete button, and I've just removed all of the enlarged plans from the section. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing for my base plans. I'm gonna go ahead and hit delete. Yes, just as easily. All right, next I'm gonna go ahead and hit VT here, get rid of those. Yes. Boom, we've just got rid of those as well. Lastly, we'll go ahead and get rid of our demolition plans. And so you can see how simple it is with this web interface to just trim down your structure. All right, now we've got it down to 17 floor and reflected ceiling plans. So really, just so you know, this is a 2-story job. All we need is the floor and reflected ceiling plans for level 1 and 2. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and select everything except those by just using my shift and control keys here and selecting plans I don't want. And now I'm gonna hit delete and then yes. And there we go. In a matter of seconds here, I've really just trimmed it down to the 4 plans that I need for takeoff. All right. So at this point, let's go ahead and select one of these pages and take a look at what we see. All right, so we've got the background image that we saw previewed in the file manager. If you look towards the bottom at the status bar here, you've got a scale of 1/8, exactly what the architect set up for this sheet. And then all over this sheet, you're seeing these green lines. What are those? Those are the same shapes that you right now are tracing in 2D over top of your PDF plans. Except what we've done is we've taken the 3D model that you've imported as a Revit file, we've extracted the data, and we've flattened out the three-dimensional shapes to show you a 2D representation of the 3D model. So we've taken the 3D model and put it into a way that you can understand based on what you're doing now, okay? And we can see that right where my mouse is, this is labeled a P1A3 wall on the plan. If I go ahead and select it, I can hit this properties tool on the right side and look at all this information the architect has given us about this wall. I can scroll down and verify, yes, this is a P1A3 wall type. I can see what family and what category it comes from. But most importantly is the dimensions tab right here. This shows me the area, the volume, and most importantly, the length of this wall. This is the quantity that you are aiming to capture when you're drawing these shapes yourself in the EDGE Estimator right now. So why draw it if the architect has already drawn it for us? And in a matter of seconds here, we've extracted all of these shapes for you. You know, if this wasn't in a demonstration format, you would already be halfway through your takeoff right now. Okay, so I can go ahead and select one of these doors and see the same thing. There's all kinds of information here. Some of it may be relevant to you, some of it may not, but it's all available to you. Okay, we can go ahead and switch to our reflected ceiling plans now, and we see our background image. We can switch to the filters tab and check out what filters are present on this sheet based on what we identified in our filter set. So we see walls on here. That's weird. Why do we see walls on our reflected ceiling plan, right? Well, that is where the extra filter set that we created called ceilings comes into play, all right? What I wanna do is for my two ceiling plans here, I'm just gonna hit this edit button and change the filter set to be our ceilings filter. And in a matter of seconds, I can just adjust the filter set for these two pages. And now when I click on my ceiling plan and go to my filters tab, I see all of the different compound ceiling family types on this sheet. I can highlight my 2x4 acoustical systems and find my gypsum wallboard ceilings and my rain screens. I'm using this filter data to identify shapes all over the plan for me. So remember that when it comes time for us to map some quantities in the EDGE Estimator. Okay, and that really would be our next step. Now we would want to start exporting some of this data to the EDGE Estimator. But before I do that, we're already breaking ground and showing you something that no one else is doing by showing you a 3D model in the form of these 2D shapes. But what if I told you that we took it to another level and we are actually able to show you the 3D model alongside the 2D model? Well, we can. I'm gonna go ahead and open up a new tab here, and what you're gonna see on that new tab is just what you think it is. This is the actual 3D model that was extracted from the Revit file that we've imported today. Okay, so we can zoom in on this, we can move from side to side, I can change the angle and look at the top or side of this building, whatever I need to do. Okay, I mean, I could spend all day playing around with this. And typically what would happen is you would have this open on another big monitor, right? And then have the screen in the background open on a separate monitor. But because of the webinar, I can only share one screen. I wanted to make sure you could see the shapes in the background and see the model at the same time, okay? But it's, you know, again, it's already cool enough and new technology that we're showing you this 3D model, but let's take it to another level. What happens if I select a shape on the build screen on our web interface, and then I go ahead and pull up the model, okay? As you can see, it's gonna actually highlight that shape for me in the 3D model. So they are synchronized together, okay? And then I can go ahead and zoom in to actually step inside of the building, okay? And take a look at what I can see here. I can actually see that we have a pipe going through this wall. So these are the types of things that we want you to identify with the 3D model. We want you to be looking for design conflicts and things that may require additional materials or labor inside of your estimate. Okay, so again, I could spend all day maneuvering around this, but what I want to do is get rid of it for now, because now it's time to go ahead and export our data into the EDGE Estimator so we can perform our takeoff and finish our estimate. All right, so all we have to do that is hit this export to the EDGE button, select our scenario, and click this export button here. All right, so I've already done that for us. As you can see, once you do that, you'll get a little blue EDGE icon next to your scenario. You'll also get an email to indicate that it was successful. And the name of our job here is Webinar-Interiors. So what we're going to do is now we're going to open up the EDGE Estimator, and you would just search up that same bid name, and here it is for us, Webinar-Interiors. All right, and here's our scenario that we created. You're just going to check it out as normal, which again, I've already done for us. Now we can step into the EDGE, and here's that section that we created. Now, if we go to our pages list, here's those 4 pages that we created. This is the seamless integration that we were talking about. I mean, this is something no one else is doing, is being able to integrate between 2 applications of this power, and it'd be so easy and so quick. All right, we can see the scale came over with these pages. And before we get into the takeoff now your next step would be to do something that you're already doing, which is to add your conditions to this job in the EDGE Estimator, okay? And before I do that, I really quick wanna let you know that what I'm gonna be working with in today's demonstration is project conditions, all right? If you're not familiar with those, reach out to our staff to learn about them, because they're really a game changer for your estimate process. If you don't know about them, the goal behind project conditions is to A, combine the process of adding conditions to pages and performing your takeoff. That's going to happen at the same time, which we'll see in a minute. Also, option B is that if you have the same project condition that exists in 5 different places, you can make a change in just one of those locations that will flow to all other instances of that condition. So it's going to speed up every part of managing conditions inside of the EDGE Estimator. Okay, so we would just open up what we call a project conditions page here, and I've brought in a couple different partition, 2 ceiling conditions, and 2 door conditions as well. Now, I didn't bring in every wall, door, and ceiling type for this job, but just enough to get us to understand how the mapping of quantities is going to occur. All right, so you would be adding conditions in the same fashion that you are now, except you can also use Vector on the web to pull up your filter and get an expansive list of all of the different wall types that you need, right? If I expand next to families and basic wall, I can make sure that I get a condition for every single wall type in this job, all right? So I have that to my advantage. Also, you know, in your estimating process now, you may be editing your condition properties before you do your takeoff or after you do your takeoff. So if you need to go in and open up your condition and enter your ceiling heights, you're going to do that the same way you do now by referring to your wall schedule or your sections or detail plans. But again, on this web interface, if we go to our file manager, I mentioned that those sections and details didn't go anywhere. I can go ahead and search up section here, and I can open up one of these wall section plans on the web, and there I go. Now I can see between level 1 and level 2, there's an elevation of about 13 feet and 1 inch. So I just figured out the ceiling height for that wall, okay? And what's even cooler is if we jump back into the EDGE and open up our bid image manager, we do, of course, only bring over the pages that you designate for takeoff in your bid structure. But if you open up your bid image manager here, you have all of those area, elevation, and section plans available because we bring them from the vector file manager to your EDGE bid image manager as well. All right. So now that we've got our conditions added, what we're going to do is we're going to launch our takeoff screen. And if you're not familiar with it, this is the project conditions pane that you'll see on the left-hand side here. We've got our pages list on the far left-hand side. And now in the middle is the background image, the same one that we saw in Vector on the web. All right, so I would select my condition, and I would just choose what plan I want to start with, which, of course, just as if you were drawing your takeoff, you want to start with your level 1 floor plan. All right, so I'm going to kind of work us through to the best way to perform takeoff using these project conditions, all right? First thing I can do is I can go ahead and add this project condition to a page and then jump over to that page. And you see I have all those same green shapes that we saw on the web in Vector. All right, so I can go ahead and zoom in on this wall. There's that same P1A3 wall type that we know based on the call out on the plan here. I can hit this general tab and see the family type and the length dimension just as I did in the property section of Vector on the web. So again, this is what I mean by seamlessly integrating all this data from one place to another. It's the beauty of the cloud, okay? And so what I want to do now, again, and I've said it a couple times throughout the demonstration, now it's time to show you, is take this length dimension and map that quantity to your condition, all right, as a replacement for you going ahead and clicking to draw this line. So what I'm going to do is we're going to focus on these fields to the right-hand side. These are new because of the vector functionality. We want to select the condition that's going to receive that length dimension. We're going to make sure we're focused on our lineal foot seat quantity because we're working with the partition condition. We're going to select the wall, and notice this button that becomes automatically highlighted that says assign. We're going to click that button and take a look at what happened. Notice the wall changed from a green to a purple color because if we look at the preview here, purple is the color that was defined in the drawing properties section of the condition properties for this partition, all right? And if I click on that condition, it's been given a lineal footage of, you guessed it, just over 13 lineal feet, the same as that length dimension inside of the properties that the architect told us. So there's no accuracy lost here. We're taking just what the architect gave us and mapping it. This is what Vector is designed to do. But I can hear what you're thinking. You're saying, okay, that's really cool and that's great. I like that I could just do it at the click of a button, but does that mean I still have to, across all my pages, click and identify every shape, make sure the condition's added to the page and map it to the right condition? Good question. Let's go ahead and address it. Let's jump back to our project conditions view and take it to another level. Let's stick with this P1A3 condition here, but now let's check out what's inside this families drop down on the right-hand side. Here, this is, again, the same as what we saw in Vector on the web, where I can view the filters that exist on this page, and I can say, hey, instead of me clicking around to find all the P1A3 walls, I can select that family type, and it's going to grab all 17 of that wall type that exists on this page. So now I've selected 17 of those wall types, all without having to go around and hunt them down. It's found them for us using the intelligent Revit data, okay? So now all I need to do is hit this assign button here, and it's gonna grab the length dimension from all those partitions and assign it to our condition. So now I've aggregated over 169 lineal feet across 17 walls at one time. All right, so that's another example of how Vector can improve your takeoff process, right? Much quicker. I just clicked one button and had takeoff for 17 walls, right? That's much quicker than you having to draw all 17 walls by clicking and dragging. All right, but is that enough for you to commit to this brand new method of takeoff and this new product? It should be, but let me take it to another level for you because I know you always want to see more, and there's no limit to what we can do with this Revit model data, okay? What I'm about to show you is truly the power of Vector, and I'm going to show you where that 80% save time comes into play here. All right, so let's go ahead and switch to our P0F2 wall type. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open up my basic wall families again. I'm gonna find my P0F2 family type, okay, by just scrolling down on the list here. Here it is. I've selected P0F2 as you can see there. And we've got 6 of those partition types on this plan. So everything is gonna stay the same, except I'm gonna now take a look at this scope drop down that we haven't seen before. All right, I'm going to change this from page to section. And notice when we were focused on our P1A3 partition project condition, okay, as soon as we aggregated takeoff for level 1, it inserted the name of that page below the condition. So that's what I meant, that it automatically added it to the page while we did the takeoff. That's the power of project conditions. So I want you to take a look at what happens underneath this condition's name once I hit assign here. It's going to say, are you sure you want to apply to the entire section? I'm going to say yes. So notice it inserted level 1 and it aggregated 30.28 lineal feet for that page. But why do we see floor plan level 2 here? Okay, we have never even looked at the level 2 floor plan yet. So what it's done is it's used the data from the model to look across all pages in the section and see if that P0F2 wall type exists on any other pages besides the one that we're on. And if it did, it automatically inserted that condition to that page and automatically mapped the quantities for all of those shapes to this condition for us. So I've just completed the takeoff for this wall across the entire job at the click of one button. So forget having to even work at a single page level. We can use the data the architect built for us to take off across entire sections at one time. That's where the 80% time saving comes in. That's how easy it is to work like this. And now all we need to do is jump to our P0 F60 partition and do the same thing. Okay, we scroll down, we find it in our list here. So we just look for P0 FT, boom, there it is, furring with tile. I scroll up, I make sure my scope is at the section level, I hit assign, I click yes. I've again got 2 pages inserted beneath, and I've just done takeoff across 2 pages for that partition as well. Okay, no different when I switch to my ceiling, except now I just want to focus on my reflected ceiling plan. Okay, I'm going to use my families, I'm going to open up my compound ceiling, I'm focused on my gypsum wallboard ceiling condition, so I hit apply, I change this to section, assign, yes, boom, I've taken off just under 800 square feet across 2 pages for my gypsum wallboard ceiling, and you can see the color changed and reflected the fill pattern as well. Really incredible stuff that we're doing here. I'm going to do the exact same thing for my acoustical ceiling. Select 2x4, assign, yes, boom, as easy as that. It really is so simple. Now I'm going to switch to my door. I'm going to go back to my floor plans where I know my doors exist. I'm going to go ahead and find this 36 by 84. So I'm going to look for that door here in my list. Here it is. I have my F36 by 84 single door. I'm going to find all 5 that exist on this page. I'm going to assign it across the section. I've just aggregated 8 of those doors across the entire job. Lastly is this 30 by 80 single door here. Here it is, 30 by 80, assign. Yes, and there we go. So now for 3 partitions, 2 ceiling types, and 2 doors, in probably 2 minutes, I've completed takeoff for all of those conditions across my entire job. This is the power of Vector. I obviously didn't have every wall type, every ceiling type, and every door type, but if we had about 5 more minutes on this demonstration, I probably could have completed takeoff for this entire job, okay? And now the beauty of this seamless integration is that from this point out, okay, you are not doing anything different than what you're doing right now. Okay, you can view your condition totals for individual pages, or you can go to your project conditions view here and view it across the entire job. But from here, you're going to be going to your material screen and pricing out your materials the same way you do now. You're going to go to your labor screen and price out your labors the same way you do now. After your new takeoff is completed, you don't do anything different. You work your way up to recap, you enter in your markups, you produce your reports, you use all the power of the edge that you're using right now. Okay, so this is what we wanted to show you today. I hope that the mapping of the quantities is really what stuck out to you. Again, that's where the 80% time saver comes in. That's what we're able to do with the data from the model, besides just show you information, is give you actual tangible quantities that feed into your estimating process. And so that's what we meant by getting you through your takeoff faster, you spending more time reacting to prices, changes in the industry, setting up your properties, etc. Okay, and there'll be even more to come in the future. But at this point, that concludes what I wanted to get through, and I want to open up the floor for questions now.
Yes, James, there are a couple of questions. The first question is it just as easy to unassign a shape from a condition as it is to assign?
That's a great question. So we just jump back to our takeoff screen here for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and select one of my project conditions. So I have a couple options here if I want to undo one of these assignments. I can click on an individual wall or lasso a group of walls, and it'll respect what I've selected, and I can just hit unassign, and you can see the quantity decreased as well as those walls are removed from view here. Or I can simply choose the default unassignment, which will just remove all of the quantity from this condition for the page. So it's just as simple if you make a mistake, which of course happens, to unassign and then reassign. We would just go ahead and select a different condition, grab those walls, and assign them here.
Great, thank you. There is another question, James. It says here, although I like the mass assign feature, can I view and select individual shapes instead of just mass assigning them all?
Yeah, absolutely. So all that's going to mean is that we just need to switch from our project conditions view to our individual page view here. So if I just click on my pages grid and then I select the condition level grid right here for my page, I have all of these shapes available to me just as we saw them in Vector on the web. So I can go ahead and click an individual shape, choose my condition from the list. I can choose any condition that's been added to this page. And once I select it, I can just hit assign. I can even lasso and grab groups of shapes, right? And then hit the assign button there. So it's really up to you. You can get more granular and specific with what you're selecting if you need to fix a mistake or just, analyze different walls. Of course, mass assigning will be the quickest method, but you are able to do that just as easily.
Awesome. All right. So if anyone else has any other questions, please forward them on and we will answer them as soon as possible. Fantastic job, James. Today, we heard the passion that James has about this product. Our team is extremely excited about delivering another quality product to the marketplace. We thank you for your interest in Vector. Please reach out if you have any other questions in reference to the next steps in adding Vector Professional to your Estimating Edge agreement. We'll be glad to help you. Thank you very much.